Called barren and worthless at 35, Pawnee warriors' orphans proved everyone wrong. The twin sons of Cimarron, 9 rose slowly over the red plains, casting long shadows across the barren land. The planet had been called worthless by many who visited, a place where nothing could grow, nothing could live, and nothing could thrive. Most settlers left as soon as they arrived, carrying stories of failure and disappointment back to the colonies. But for Taya Pawnee and her siblings, the harsh, dusty winds were home. Taya, now 35, stood on the ridge overlooking the family homestead. Her eyes followed the thin trail of dust that marked the edge of their small fields. She had learned to read the land in ways few others could. Every change in color, every faint line in the soil, told a story. Even in what others called barren, she could see potential. Her younger siblings, Micah and Lonnie, moved about the homestead below, preparing the solar panels and checking the water collection tanks. Micah was 19, lanky, and always curious. Lonnie was 14, clever and quick with her hands, the one who could fix almost anything. Together they had survived the challenges of Cimarron. 9 for years, turning scraps and salvage tech into a small but workable homestead. "Sun's high," Taya called down. "Keep the panels angled. We need every bit of power today." Micah waved. "Got it. Lonnie's already got the water pumps running." Taya smiled faintly. It was a simple life, but it was theirs. Many in the nearby mining colonies laughed at them. A woman over 30, alone with 2 orphans, trying to farm a barren wasteland. They said it was hopeless, that she was too old to start over, that the land would never produce anything useful. They had even called her family worthless. Taya had learned to ignore their words. Words were easy. Action was harder. And action had been their only way forward. The day began like any other, with the siblings tending their crops. Though the soil was thin and rocky, Taya had discovered a few hardy plants that could survive with minimal water. They were small, but they were alive. Watching them grow gave Taya hope. She remembered her grandfather's stories about their Pawnee ancestors, people who had survived impossible journeys in thriving communities. Their blood carried resilience, she believed, even if others had forgotten. As she dug her hands into the soil, she noticed something unusual, a faint shimmer beneath a pile of rocks near the edge of the field. Curious, she knelt and brushed away the dust. Beneath it was a small metallic object, shaped like a disc. It pulsed faintly with light, almost like it had a heartbeat. "Micah! Lonnie! Come here!" Taya called, her voice tight with excitement. The siblings hurried over. Lonnie's eyes widened. "What is it?" she whispered. "I don't know," Taya said, carefully lifting the disc. It was warm to the touch, as if it carried energy from the planet itself. "But it's old, very old, and it feels alive." Micah leaned closer, eyes full of wonder. "Do you think it's alien?" Taya shook her head. "Not alien. Our ancestors. Something they left behind, maybe. A guide, a tool, something." The 3 of them examined the disc for hours, turning it over and watching the faint patterns of light dance across its surface. It seemed to respond to Taya's touch, pulsing more brightly when her fingers traced certain symbols. As the suns moved higher, a shadow fell across the homestead. A convoy of small, hovering drones appeared on the horizon, moving silently toward them. Taya's heart tightened. These were survey drones, likely sent by the nearby mining corporations. They had long ignored her homestead, but perhaps the presence of the disc or the shimmer in her crops had caught their sensors. "We need to hide it," Taya said firmly. She handed the disc to Lonnie. "Cover it with something that won't trigger their scanners. Rocks, dirt, whatever works." Lonnie nodded, quickly burying the disc under a pile of rocks, while Micah adjusted the solar panels to cast shadows that hid their crops from above. Taya felt a surge of pride and anxiety at the same time. They had survived many things on Cimarron. 9, but outside attention was always dangerous, not because it could hurt them directly, but because it could change everything about their quiet life. The drones hovered briefly, scanning the area with faint beams of light. Taya held her breath as they moved slowly across the ridge. Time seemed to stretch as the machines hovered overhead, then finally moved on, leaving the family undisturbed. "That was close," Micah said, letting out a shaky breath. Taya nodded, brushing her hands on her pants. "Too close. But it's a warning. We'll need to be careful. Whatever that disc is, someone else will notice it sooner or later." As the suns began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple, Taya stood once more on the ridge. She felt the pulse of the disc beneath the rocks. Something was calling to her. Something from the past. "Do you think our ancestors left it for us?" Lonnie asked softly. Taya considered the question. Maybe. Or maybe it's just waiting for someone to see what we can do with it. Either way, it's not here by accident. The siblings gathered around their small dinner table, eating a simple meal of rehydrated vegetables and thin bread. Even as they ate, their minds wandered to the possibilities. Could the land really hold more than they had imagined? Could the barren plains actually grow life if they found the right method? The night came quietly, with a cool wind blowing across the red sands. The stars were bright in the sky, and the twin moons of Cimarron 9 cast a soft silvery glow on the homestead. Taya lay awake, staring at the ceiling of their small shelter. The disk, hidden beneath the rocks, seemed to hum softly. She could almost hear a voice in the pattern of the lights, a rhythm that whispered promises of discovery. "We've always been told we're worthless," she murmured to herself. "But maybe we're not." The siblings slept soundly, unaware of the subtle glow that began to seep from the disk through the rocks. It was faint, almost invisible, but it pulsed in a rhythm that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the planet itself. Taya knew that tomorrow would be different. The land would not reveal its secrets easily. But she also knew that this moment, this spark of discovery, was the first step toward proving everyone wrong. And somewhere deep within the barren plains of Cimarron 9, a promise waited. The promise of life, of hope, and of a future that no one had thought possible. Taya closed her eyes, a small smile on her face. For the first time in years, the words of the settlers no longer mattered. The land was not barren, she was not worthless. Tomorrow, they would begin to uncover the secrets of Cimarron, and when they did, no one would be able to call the Pawnee warriors orphans anything but survivors and dreamers. The next morning, Cimarron 9 greeted the Pawnee siblings with a wind that swept across the plains, carrying red dust that glittered faintly in the early sunlight. Taya stood at the edge of the homestead, eyes narrowing at the horizon. The disk they had found yesterday still pulsed faintly under the rocks, and she felt its hum like a quiet heartbeat beneath the earth. "Are you sure we can trust it?" Micah asked as he approached, brushing dust from his sleeves. He squinted at the shimmering heat haze over the distant hills. Taya shook her head. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. It wasn't here by accident. Something wants us to see it, to understand it." Lonnie came running, carrying a small notebook she had started to record their experiments. "I was thinking," she said breathlessly, "maybe it's connected to the soil. The plants are growing better near it. Maybe it helps life survive." Taya considered this, kneeling to brush some loose soil from her hand. "If that's true, we need to study it carefully. No one else can see it yet, not until we understand what it does." The siblings decided to prepare for a journey across the nearby plains. Taya had seen something in the shimmer on the horizon yesterday, a strange structure, faintly glowing, hidden among the jagged rocks. Whatever it was, it felt old, very old. And it might hold answers about the disk, the land, and the Pawnee ancestors who had survived on this world long before settlers arrived. By mid-morning, they had packed their supplies. Solar-charged water packs, dried food, tools, and repair kits were tucked carefully into a lightweight rover they had repaired last season. Taya checked the rover's systems one final time, her hands steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. "Remember," she said to her siblings, "we follow the path the land shows us. Watch the soil, watch the rocks, and watch the sky. Cimarron 9 has tricks for anyone who ignores it." Micah grinned. "You mean like surprise dust storms?" "Exactly," Taya said, smirking. "And we don't want to get caught in one." The rover rumbled across the red plains, its wheels kicking up small clouds of dust that hung in the morning light. As they moved, Taya noticed patterns in the land. Curved lines of minerals, faint channels where water once flowed, and tiny glimmers that hinted at minerals hidden beneath the surface. It reminded her of the stories her grandfather had told about Pawnee star maps, how every line and curve of the land could tell a story if you knew how to read it. Hours passed, and the landscape began to change. The flat red plains gave way to jagged rocks and deep canyons, the kind that made the rover's wheels clatter and rattle over the uneven ground. At the base of a steep hill, they stopped. "There," Taya whispered, pointing to the shimmer she had seen yesterday. Nestled between 2 rock spires was a small structure, glowing faintly like a lantern in the dust. Its walls were smooth, metallic, and covered in strange markings that pulsed with light and rhythm with the disk back at the homestead. Lonnie's eyes widened. "It's beautiful, and it's alive." Taya nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and caution. We need to be careful. We don't know what's inside or what it wants us to find. They approached the structure slowly. The air near it seemed different, lighter, almost musical, and the hum of the disc grew stronger in Taya's pack. She knelt to touch the ground, and the soil under her fingers shimmered faintly, like it was responding to her presence. Micah stepped closer to the entrance. It looks like some kind of building, but it's ancient and clean. How could something survive here for so long? Taya shook her head. Our ancestors, she said quietly. I knew this land better than anyone. Maybe this was their way of leaving knowledge for those who came after them. The entrance opened easily, as if welcoming them. Inside, the air was cooler, and the glow from the walls cast gentle patterns across the floor. The siblings stepped in carefully. Strange symbols lined the walls, geometric shapes that seemed to float and pulse. Some of the symbols mirrored those on the disc, and Taya felt her heartbeat quicken. This isn't just a building, she whispered. It's a message, a guide. Micah wandered over to one of the glowing walls, tracing the patterns with his fingers. As he did, a faint holographic map flickered to life, hovering in the air above them. Lines of light formed shapes they recognized, river channels, plateaus, even areas where certain plants could survive. It's showing the land, Lonnie said. Not just here, but all of Cimarron. 9. Taya nodded slowly. Our ancestors must have mapped the planet and left instructions. This is why the disc called to us. For hours, they studied the maps and symbols. The structure seemed to respond to their questions, pulsing brighter when they focused on certain areas and dimming when they ignored others. It felt alive, like a silent companion guiding them through the secrets of the planet. As evening approached, Taya realized something important. If we can learn to follow this guide, we can grow more than just these small plants. We can make the land bloom, even in places everyone said were worthless. Micah frowned. Do you think anyone will believe us? Taya smiled faintly. Not yet. But we don't need anyone to believe us. The land doesn't care about opinions. It cares about what we do. They left the structure reluctantly, bringing with them a small sample of soil that shimmered faintly, like the land itself wanted to be part of their experiment. On the way back, Taya kept glancing at the horizon. The glow of the structure remained in her mind, a constant reminder of what could be possible. Back at the homestead, they carefully buried the disc near the crops, letting it pulse softly beneath the soil. That night, as the twin moons rose over the red plains, the siblings gathered around their small table, sharing a simple meal. We're on the edge of something, Taya said, her voice quiet but firm. Something that could change everything about this land. About us. Lonnie nodded, eyes bright. I can feel it too. The soil is happier. Like it wants to grow. Micah leaned back, looking out at the stars. Do you think this could really work? That we could turn the barren plains into something alive? Taya reached over and squeezed his shoulder. I don't just think it could work. I know it will. It's not just us. Our ancestors left the tools. We just have to learn how to use them. As the night deepened, Taya sat quietly by the small hearth in their shelter, staring at the faint pulse of light under the soil. The disc, the structure, the soil, it was all connected. She could feel it in her bones. Cimarron 9 was not barren. Not really. It had waited a long time for someone to understand it. And now, the Pawnee warriors' orphans were ready. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, as if reflecting the pulse of life growing beneath the red soil. Somewhere far away, the wind whispered through the plains, carrying a soft promise that even the most forgotten and forsaken places could bloom again. Taya closed her eyes, imagining fields of light and life stretching across the barren landscape. She could almost see it. The glowing plants, thriving and strong, a legacy of survival and hope. And she knew that tomorrow they would begin the first true experiment of their lives. Because for the first time, Cimarron 9 felt alive. The next morning, Taya Pawnee rose with the twin suns cutting through the thin shelter walls. The wind still swept across the barren plains carrying a faint red haze, but today it felt different. The air hummed softly, as if Cimarron 9 itself was waking. She checked the small glowing plants they had planted near the disc the night before. Tiny shoots of green and gold shimmered faintly under the sunlight. Micah was already outside, adjusting the solar panels and scanning the horizon with binoculars. The drones are still out there, he said quietly, nodding toward a faint shimmer above the distant ridges. They didn't come close last night, but I don't know how long it will last. Taya nodded, keeping her voice calm. We have to be careful. But we also need to focus on the work. The land won't wait for anyone. Lonnie carried water packs to the new crops, her steps light and careful. "They look happy," she said, almost in awe, "like they want to grow." Taya smiled faintly. "Good. Then let's help them." The siblings began experimenting with the soil, using the guidance they had learned from the glowing structure. They mixed a thin layer of minerals from the rocky canyons with water drawn from their collection tanks. They placed tiny solar reflectors around the crops to help the light reach deeper into the soil. Every movement was careful, deliberate, as if they were part of a delicate ritual. Hours passed, and the little patch of land began to shimmer more brightly. The plants stretched, their leaves curling toward the sunlight, absorbing the energy that seemed to pulse from the disk buried beneath the soil. "This is working," Micah whispered, almost afraid to speak too loudly. "It's really working." Taya crouched beside the soil, feeling the pulse through her fingers. The land responds to care, not force. That's the lesson our ancestors left us. Everything alive grows with respect, with attention, with patience. But Cimarron, 9 was still a wild frontier. Clouds of red dust began to swirl in the distance, and the siblings could see the first hints of a gravity storm forming along the horizon. Taya's heart tightened. Gravity storms were unpredictable. They could sweep across the plains in minutes, tossing rocks and dust like confetti. "We need to protect the crops," Lonnie cried, grabbing sandbags and lightweight shields they had built from old rover panels. Micah helped, moving the solar reflectors carefully while Taya used tarps and stones to secure the delicate plants. The storm advanced, but thanks to their preparation, the crops were shielded enough to survive the initial gusts. As the winds roared, Taya felt the pulse of the disk beneath the soil grow stronger, almost like it was cheering them on. The plants bent under the pressure but did not break. When the storm finally passed, they were battered but alive. The siblings collapsed on the ground, exhausted but smiling. "That was close," Micah said, panting. "But they survived." Taya nodded, brushing dirt from her hands. "We're learning. Every challenge is a lesson." After the storm, the siblings noticed something new. Tiny sprouts were appearing in places they had not planted, along the edges of the homestead, near rocks, even in small cracks in the soil. The land itself seemed to respond to their efforts, spreading life where it had long been barren. "This is amazing," Lonnie said softly. "The soil, it's alive." Taya smiled, thinking of the glowing structure and the disk. They left a promise. The planet will grow if we guide it carefully. But their success also attracted attention. A faint hum from the horizon revealed the approach of a corporate survey drone. It hovered silently, scanning the land, its sensors likely detecting the sudden bloom of the crops. Micah frowned. "They can see the crops. If they come closer, they'll take everything." Taya's mind raced. "We need a diversion. We can't let them see the full patch yet." Using their knowledge of the land, the siblings set up a clever ruse. They placed reflective panels on nearby rocks, redirecting sunlight to create the illusion of light and energy elsewhere. Small mirrors created flashes that drew the drone's attention to empty soil patches, away from the glowing crops. The drone lingered for a few tense minutes, scanning the wrong areas. Then, apparently satisfied, it moved on. The siblings exhaled collectively. "That was too close," Micah muttered. Taya placed a hand on his shoulder. "Every challenge teaches us something. We're still learning, and we will keep learning. That's what it means to survive here." Over the next days, the siblings continued experimenting. They tried different soil mixes, adjusting mineral concentrations, water amounts, and solar reflector angles. Slowly, small patches of land began to thrive, shimmering faintly with bioluminescent growth. They discovered patterns in the soil, recognizing where the land wanted to grow and where it resisted. It was exhausting work. The twin suns were relentless, the winds unpredictable, and the barren landscape seemed to test their patience at every turn. But with each success, the siblings' confidence grew. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Taya noticed a change in the hum beneath the soil. The disk pulsed rhythmically, in a pattern almost like a heartbeat. She knelt to touch it, feeling a warm vibration travel up her fingers. "It's talking to us," she whispered. "It wants us to understand something deeper." Micah and Lonnie crouched beside her. Lonnie traced a faint symbol on the disk's surface with her finger. A holographic projection flickered briefly above the soil. A star map, overlaid with images of plants and rivers. "It's showing more than just our homestead," Micah said, awe in his voice. "It's showing the planet, the whole planet. Taya's eyes widened. Our ancestors, they must have guided us all along. They left this for the Pawnee descendants, for those who could see and understand. This isn't just survival, this is stewardship. For the first time, the siblings felt the weight of their task. They weren't just growing crops. They were continuing the legacy, connecting with their ancestors and proving the doubters wrong. Cimarron, 9 was not barren, not really. And they were not worthless. But even as they marveled at the glowing soil and the flickering star map, another challenge loomed. The twin moons were rising, casting long shadows across the plains. And in the distance, Taya spotted something that made her heart tighten. A second, larger drone hovering high above, scanning the horizon in a methodical pattern. "They know we're here," Micah said, voice tense. "And this one won't be fooled by our tricks." Taya took a deep breath. "Then we have to move faster. We can't hide forever. We need to prove that the land can thrive, before anyone else interferes." The siblings worked late into the night, adjusting soil, repositioning reflective panels, and nurturing the young plants. The glow from the crops spread slowly, faint tendrils reaching into the cracks and crevices of the barren earth. It was a quiet, magical light, like the land itself was breathing again. As Taya looked out over the small patch of glowing life, she felt a surge of hope. They had survived storms, they had fooled drones, and they had begun to awaken the land. But more importantly, they had survived each other's doubts, fears, and uncertainties. They were no longer just orphans struggling to exist. They were a team, a family, and a force capable of changing their world. Micah nudged her gently. "Do you think anyone will believe us?" Taya smiled, brushing red dust from her hands. "Some may not. But it doesn't matter. The land doesn't need to believe in us. It just needs care, patience, and respect. And we have all three." Lonnie sat beside her, eyes shining in the glow of the crops. "Then let's keep going," she said softly, "no matter what." Taya nodded. "Yes, no matter what." The twin moons rose higher, casting silver light across the barren plains. In the quiet of the night, the glowing crops pulsed gently, a living proof that even the most forgotten places could come alive. And somewhere deep beneath the soil, the disk pulsed stronger than ever, guiding, teaching, and waiting. Cimarron, 9 was beginning to change, and the Pawnee warriors' orphans were ready to see it bloom. The morning sun rose over Cimarron, 9 like a promise. The red plains, once harsh and silent, now held a faint shimmer. Tiny patches of glowing crops stretched across the homestead and into the surrounding soil, following the paths Taya and her siblings had mapped with care. The disk beneath the ground pulsed rhythmically, almost like it was smiling. Taya stood on the ridge, looking out over the land. 35 years had taught her that people's words meant little. Actions spoke louder. For years, settlers had called her and her siblings barren and worthless. For years, the land itself had seemed unforgiving. But now, the first signs of life spread like a soft green fire across the red earth. Micah approached with a small drone scanner. "The survey drones are still out there," he said, nodding toward the horizon. "They've been circling, probably trying to figure out what's happening." Taya smiled faintly. "Let them watch. They'll see soon enough, but we need to make sure the land is ready before anyone steps closer." Lonnie knelt beside the glowing crops, adjusting small reflectors and sprinkling a thin layer of minerals into the soil. "They're stronger than I thought," she said softly. "And they're spreading faster, too." For weeks, the siblings had nurtured their crops, experimenting with combinations of soil, water, and sunlight. Each day brought surprises. New sprouts appeared in the most unexpected places. Tiny flowers shimmered with bioluminescence, and the barren soil itself seemed to soften and respond to care. Taya knew that this was more than farming. It was a dialogue with the planet. Cimarron, 9 was no longer lifeless. It was a partner, a teacher, and a living testament to patience, care, and ingenuity. By mid-morning, a low hum sounded in the distance. Taya squinted toward the horizon and saw something she had not expected, a convoy of small hovercraft, carrying settlers from the nearby colonies. Their sensors had detected the glowing crops, and curiosity had finally brought them to the Pawnee homestead. "They've come," Micah said, voice tense. "Do you think they'll understand?" Taya nodded, though her stomach tightened. "We show them what the land can do. We don't argue. We let the crops speak for themselves." The settlers arrived cautiously, stepping out of their hovercrafts and approaching the glowing fields. Their eyes widened as they took in the shimmering green and gold plants. Some whispered to each other, pointing at the growth spreading across soil that had long been considered worthless. Taya stepped forward. "Welcome," she said, keeping her voice calm and steady. This land is alive. It has waited a long time for someone to care for it properly. We only followed the guidance of those who came before us. One of the settlers, a middle-aged man with sun-faded clothing, stepped closer. "You did this?" he asked incredulously. "Yes," Taya said simply. "With patience, care, and respect for the land." The settlers moved among the crops, examining them closely. Some knelt to touch the glowing leaves, feeling warmth and energy. Others scanned the soil and recorded data on portable tablets. The expressions on their faces shifted from doubt to wonder. "They grow without force," Lonnie explained, kneeling beside a small patch. "The soil responds to attention, to guidance. This land isn't barren, it's waiting." Micah added, "We've had storms, winds, and challenges, but the land survived because we learned to work with it, not against it." The settlers exchanged glances, silent for a moment. Finally, the middle-aged man nodded. "We've been wrong about this place. We've called it worthless for years, but you've shown us otherwise." Taya felt a surge of relief and pride. "It's not just about the land," she said. "It's about what people can do when they care, when they listen, and when they respect what came before them." Over the next few hours, the settlers helped the Pawnee siblings expand the glowing fields. Some brought small tools and additional water packs. Others helped rearrange reflectors and test soil mixes. With guidance from Taya, Micah, and Lonnie, the barren land slowly transformed into a patchwork of life, pulsing gently under the twin suns. As evening approached, the twin moons rose, casting a soft silver light over the glowing fields. The disk beneath the soil pulsed steadily, and the air itself seemed lighter, as if the planet was breathing again. Taya walked along the edge of the largest crop field, her hand brushing over the shimmering leaves. She thought of the settlers who had doubted her, the storms she had endured, and the countless hours of patient work. And she realized that this was more than survival. This was a proof of possibility. Micah joined her, looking out at the glowing plains. "Do you think the others will believe it when they hear about this?" Taya smiled. "Some may believe. Some may not. But it doesn't matter. We've seen it. We've done it. Cimarron. 9 is alive now, and we are its caretakers." Lonnie joined them, her eyes shining in the soft light. "The disk, it helped us, didn't it?" Taya nodded. "But it wasn't magic. It was our ancestors reminding us of what they already knew, that this land could thrive with patience and care. We just had to listen." As night fell, the settlers gathered around the glowing fields, marveling at the sight. Conversations buzzed with excitement and admiration. Slowly, the story spread that Cimarron Paris, 9 was no longer barren. Slowly, the words worthless and hopeless began to fade from the minds of those who had doubted the Pawnee siblings. Taya sat on a small rise, watching the twin moons reflect on the shimmering crops. She thought of her grandfather, of the stories of Pawnee warriors and survivors, and of the strength that had carried them through so many hardships. She felt a deep connection to the past, to the land, and to the siblings beside her. "Do you think we've done enough?" Micah asked quietly. Taya looked out across the fields, glowing softly under the twin moons. "Enough, maybe. But this is only the beginning. Cimarron 9 still has much to teach us. And we still have much to learn." Lonnie smiled, brushing a small leaf between her fingers. "I think it's perfect." Taya took a deep breath, feeling the hum of the disk beneath her feet and the gentle pulse of life spreading across the land. "Perfect isn't the point," she said softly. "The point is that we tried, that we cared, and that we proved what was possible. The rest will follow." The settlers began returning to their hovercrafts, but their eyes lingered on the glowing fields. Some promised to bring more help, more knowledge, and more settlers to witness the transformation. The message was clear. Cimarron 9 was no longer forgotten. Cimarron 9 had life. As the siblings watched the horizon, the twin suns dipped below the edge of the red plains, leaving the glowing crops bathed in the soft silver light of the moons. The air was quiet but full of possibility. The once barren land now thrummed with energy, and the Pawnee warriors' orphans had shown the universe that patience, care, and courage could turn even the most hopeless frontier into a home. Taya turned to her siblings, a quiet pride in her voice. "We've proven them wrong. Not just the settlers, but anyone who ever said we couldn't do it. Cimarron 9 is alive because we believed, and because we listened." Micah grinned, brushing dust from his sleeves. "We really did it, didn't we?" "Yes," Taya said firmly. "We did it." And the land will remember us just as we remember our ancestors. Lonnie looked out over the fields, her eyes bright. And maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something bigger. Taya smiled. Yes, something bigger. Something lasting. The night deepened, and the glowing crops pulsed softly beneath the twin moons. Somewhere beneath the soil, the disk pulsed as well, a heartbeat echoing the rhythm of life itself. Cimarron 9 had waited a long time for this moment. And now finally, the barren plains were no longer barren. The so-called worthless land had purpose, and the Pawnee warriors' orphans had proven that hope, wisdom, and courage could bloom anywhere, even where no one thought life could survive. And under the twin moons and red skies, Taya knew one thing for certain. They had changed everything. They had made Cimarron 9 worth believing in.